All right. Good afternoon, Cyber Traders. Welcome. I'm back for another fantastic edition of our Traders Talk Workshop simulcast inside our live trading room, but also on YouTube, Facebook Live, all of our social media streams and platforms. I got a face for radio this morning. My name is Josh Levitan, senior instructor here at Cyber Trading University. Got back from New York late last night. Red eye flight. Actually, that's Fausto's forte, if anything. But I took a red eye flight back last night. I got a face for radio. So I'll save you the hassle there. But great to have all of us here joining us live, at least Kerry, Gillis, Lynn and Randy, Kathleen before. I see Andrew here. I see Dave here. One of our new members, John, joining us here. John S., great to see here as well. And any of our new trial members testing our room out for this week, welcome on aboard. I see Gunwant here. I see Douglas here. I see John, as I had just mentioned a moment ago. Mark B. I don't know if he's my neighbor as much, but up in Spring Hill, Florida. I'm over by St. Pete, Clearwater area there, Mark. But great to see Robert M., Robert S. A lot of us just joining us here. I see Victor, one of our new students at least. Great to have all of us here collectively. Now, I know why a lot of us in our trading room are so excited right now. It's this here on the screen, MLGO. It's up nearly 300%. It's still flying now. It's defying all logic, defying all odds. Yeah, John, we got a few John S's. We got a few Johns. John's taking over now. Great to see Frederick K, though, here joining us here as well. All right, so there is a lot to talk about here in Traders Talk. This is our weekly Q&A workshop that we host every Monday. And, it's all recorded, always on our YouTube channel at Cyber Trading U. But otherwise, let's dig right into this trade. Get that up first there. At Cyber Trading U, popping up on the lower left there in blue. If you're joining us on Facebook, YouTube, etc., just go right to our YouTube channel at Cyber Trading U. Be a friend, tell a friend. Look to hit the follow or subscribe button. But let's just start off with this trade here to begin right away. We know it's moving up right now, but let's just talk about the morning that we had on it, because we saw this in pre-market. We saw the pop when Fausto himself was doing the meeting, and then we called it out immediately after the market opened up. It popped. A bunch of us jumped in on this trade. I had actually asked just before when I was teaching a class. I was coming off just a class a moment ago with a lot of us here inside our room. But let me ask all of us here collectively, all of our members here, who ended up making money on this trade at least this morning? If you made money on this trade, whether it's $1, $10, or $1,000, let me know. Just if you made, we don't really talk too much about numbers as much. Just if you got in. Patrick, Philip, Chris, Marcella, Lynn, Kathleen, Kevin, John, Kerry, Michael, Barbara. There we go. A bunch of us. Now, if you did not, no sweat. I just went over this before in class. For those same students that answered me actually just here in our live trading room, is this the first time you've ever seen a stock up 150% in a day? Is this the first time you've ever seen a stock now up 280% in a day? No. We see this all the time here, pretty much every week. We don't want to slap the G word on that guarantee because, obviously compliance and stuff, but it feels like pretty much every week. It feels like pretty much every week we get something like this moving. Now, I will say to have it running from 9:30 a.m. or even 9:15 a.m. straight through to noon without any major lower low, that's very impressive. So to see it run all the way through until now, like with trading volatility and room to day trade this, that's actually really rare. But like to see a stock up 280% in one day is not. But either way, though, hey, we saw this begin to move in pre-market. It was not just up percentage-wise in pre-market, but of course, right before it popped, it was making higher lows. It was trending up. So right away, we know that there's some formative buying pressure building into this trade right now, right? So obviously it popped from there. Now, let's just start off with this. From Margaret Carey, I see a bunch of us here otherwise. Let me shout out some other names here. Farzad and Elmer, and I see Malcolm, and I see Kumar, and I see Randall, and I see Ravi, and a bunch of us that are just tuning in right now on the sideline. I want everyone to answer this. For a cheaper stock like this, for a cheaper, less expensive stock like this, what common set of price levels normally do we see these big iceberg orders off of? Regardless of what's on my screen right now, regardless of what's on the book map, we'll do that next. What common set of price levels for something like this do we normally see the big icebergs off of? Patrick, Barbara, a lot of us here 50-cent whole number levels. Absolutely. Now, here's the thing though. This popped up so far, so much today. I'm not expecting every 50 pennies to be some new level to work off of that's just as strong as the last. Not every level is going to be as strong equally. So, what I'll feel even more comfortable using is just the dollar levels. So like $3, $4, $5, and then especially even more abstract, where you talk about like even more abstract, wide than just $1 prices. Think about US dollar bills, excluding the $2 bill, if you don't mind. You got $1, then you got $5, and then after that, 10. So, hey, of course, I'm focused around these dollar prices. 3, 4. Obviously, we'll jump up one right now and say like 6, and then 7, etc., etc. Those are prices I'm normally going to focus on anyway, right? That's the first thing I'll plot on this graph if I even have a remote interest on this trade here for today. Now, in hindsight, I'm not counting all the way up to 10. Like when I'm plotting this chart out here in pre-market, I'm not plotting lines up to 10 because I am not expecting this to go up to 10. But at least I'm focused around 3, 4, you do 6. And then, of course, thinking even more abstract than just like a $1 price, well, just $5. That I would think even more to be a psychological level to work off of. And then, of course, in hindsight, as we draw closer to this running live currently here, well, now at this point, $10, right? 5, 10, 15. Obviously, 10 is a decade level number there as well. We'll see what happens to that in just a moment. But this is all before I'm even thinking about Bookmap. This is just like all psychological and assumed levels where the icebergs are assumed to be. Now, though, obviously, let's see where the iceberg orders actually are. let's see where they actually are. And not just that, we're going to do more so here because we taught a lot of this in our class just before, right? Remember, Lynn and Randy were there just before. Barbara, Chris, a bunch of us were with me just like an hour ago. So, we talked about it all there. We're actually going to go further into the charting. We'll go more into the historical charting, like the daily, weekly chart on the stock in just a bit. We didn't do that in class. All right. So where do we have orange or red lines stretching across this page at any point? Looking at my screen right here, where do we have orange or red lines stretching across this page that you see? This is not meant to be a curveball. This is meant to be a very straightforward one here, folks. So not meant to be tricky. Yeah, all of us answering one or the other or both, right? 565 area. Perfect. It's like sticking out there still on the far right side. And then, even darker orange red line at 590, right? So those two prices, uniquely enough, we have resistance. This got pulled. It was about 80,000 shares earlier, right? Actually, it was like 80K flat we saw before. There we go. Haha. 80K flat on the gun, 80K. And it ended up getting pulled just before the market had opened up. Now, though, I will say, though, that those two prices still, for me, will count as resistance on this chart. I would plot a line at 565, plot a line at that 590. Now, speaking about like 590, at least 590 is pretty darn close to that $6 level. Talk about the whole numbers, 4, 5. So, you know what? 590 and $6 together, since both of those uniquely are, levels for me to think about today, that would be a stronger area for this to try and test resistance. And as we know, it broke over that later on. So obviously it's still pushing up right now as we're talking. But let me ask us this. The same people that are joining me here live, hopefully were a part of this earlier here. I see Elena and Carrie and Richard W. and Margaret, Richard K. I see some other names. Guy from our on-site. Guy H, great to have you here. Mekalinga, great to have here from Ontario, Canada. Who else we got? Roger, one of our longtime students. Maybe Phil M's neighbor up in Michigan. But let me ask us here. When a stock breaks over resistance and it runs, resistance initially becomes what? Support. Absolutely, right? And hey, every week here it's the same questions, but it's with repetition comes confidence. And when you're watching the stock run or make a more unexpected move up, Well, I think about the simple things in life. Resistance becoming support. The more times a stock nips and tests that resistance, I'd like to think that it's going to lead to that better pop. So I'll think about that for an entry. Or on the flip side, resistance becoming support. So maybe that 590 to 6 area initially is resistance, but the more that gets nipped at, poked at, nipped at, it can break. And not only that, perhaps that could flip into support over time. All right, so let's take one last look. We talked about the heat map here for the most part. Um, and then otherwise, I will say, let's just jump actually to the long-term graph. I didn't do this here yet. Give me a moment. I'll even just delete these lines for right now because I just want to focus on the historical chart. But let's just do, what is this, the weekly chart? Excluding today, of course. Well, it looks like back from late Feb, this had a big pop, right? It ended up topping off at, well, 1171, the high of the week on this candle. That could be a resistance, but that's obviously a far ways away from where this was trading at in pre-market hours. So, I'm not shooting for the stars there. Let's go back even more. Well, back in early Jan, looks like it ended up making a pop and drop on this week. Topped off at the price 769. Okay. 769, eh? Well, it looks like actually here, the week after this pop, just kind of comparing that with that first candle from January, 757 the high, 769 the high. Okay, that's like kind of close a little bit. There's a little confluence there, maybe, as you would say. What else we got? We got 840, a high here on this candle, 820, a high there. 840. Ooh, that's the same exact top here, isn't it? 840, 840. This one's 820. Kind of seems like around 820 to 840 around. Just, this was back from 2014 or 2024, pardon me. But nevertheless, looks like when it ran into it here as resistance, well, yeah, it broke over it. And maybe it was a great support bounce this day, actually, or on a day from that week, rather. But it ended up coming right back down and collapsed. So this rightfully served as resistance, and then it broke lower. All right, so I'm going to keep that there at least. That's like 820 to 840 area. All right, so finally, what is our masterpiece going to show? Well, we ended up seeing this, of course, run up. That's obviously in hindsight. We know that this ended up flying upward, right? Well, we're hoping for it to, at least when the market opens. We know that we should be waiting the first 3 to 5 minutes after the market opens just to see shakes and moves. So it did make that slingshot right away here on the first 3 minutes. So started to dictate direction potentially. We're looking for a move up right from that point. All right. Well, maybe there could have been a level here off of $4, maybe 450. That is where I had taken my trade. I took a 3-cent loss at first. I jumped in from 450. I got taken out at 447, but it didn't pull back any lower. I saw it stick around here. It was shaken. And I said, okay, if it's not going to break any lower, perhaps there is a case for there to be another pop. So, in terms of like hindsight stuff, I have no problem taking a small loss to try and take the same trade a second time. Um, if everyone looked at their trades in hindsight and said, "Oh, I shouldn't have had my stop so tight," yeah, then you're going to blow up your account the next trade that you set your stop to lose. You know what I mean? So, for anyone that lives in hindsight like that, you're never going to cut it as a trader. You have to focus on what happens more often than not. So, meaning in the sense of, hey, this shook around a little bit after I got taken out on a 3-cent loss. This was like one of the only stocks as well that was like we were focused on. Granted, Tesla was popping, Palantir was moving up. So like the market was going up. But out of like small cap stocks, this was like the one. So I was fixated on this. And once it ended up shaking around 450 again, I jumped back in right over 450, this time at 452. I took half my trade out at 492 or 493, I think it was at maybe. And then the second half, I got taken out of 79. So I made money, right? I was happy with the trade. I ended up moving on to Tesla, at least myself afterwards, and I was focused in on Celsius as a swing trade. But this ended up popping a lot more from that point, right? So there could have been more room for me to make money on this trade, but Either way, for a Monday, I was happy with making money. Now, this stock ended up running up to resistance at first at $5. It ended up hitting this initially. And right away, I took half my trade out because I was thinking, all right, well, we're drawing closer to 10 o'clock. We're drawing closer to 10:30 nonetheless, right? And this might reverse sooner. It's possible. Again, if we lived in hindsight all the time, right? There are plenty of stocks that reverse before 10:30. So I wanted to make money. It was Monday morning. I got back from a late night trip from New York City. So I'm not trying to like be super aggressive. No, hang back, guys. So I'm making my money, little nickels and dimes here. It was more than that, but I was happy with what I got. That's where I'm thinking, at least, for anyone that didn't jump in this trade from the first, 10, 15 minutes, and then it pushed up afterwards without them, I would not be jumping in here. If I was not in already, I would not be jumping in right away here because I'm expecting resistance to hold the first test. Now, though, the more times that it keeps nipping and stabbing that level over a smaller tenure, I'm looking for that better push. With patience comes that better pot. So at least there's some shakes where it cuts around it. Yeah, it breaks back over it here and flies. So the more that you're waiting for those nips over the level, you're avoiding the false ones at first. And I mean, you could say, okay, once it pops this, you could jump. Nope. For me, at least, I'm focused around where the big money's trading at. So even here, Bookmap, you'll see we had resistance at 480. We had a resistance at $5. That's where I'm focused around. Now you could say maybe that area together ended up flipping resistance into support. So if you're thinking like, all right, maybe 480, you can try and get that entry from 480. Yeah, that worked out. 480 could have been a great entry in the simple sense of the more times it keeps stabbing that area within the smaller frame, I'm expecting continuation. And point being, I'm not jumping in right away here. So with patience comes that better move. You're never going to catch it perfect every single time, every day of the week that ends in Y. You're going to be there, right place, wrong time. You are going to get stopped out. You are going to miss the move by waiting too much, even. So we are human beings. But where I'm pointing to you is I'm definitely waiting at least before jumping in because I feel like there's going to be a sense of consolidation or rejection from that 5 level. And there was. So with patience comes that better move. The more that you're seeing it stab over that area, and mainly $5 nonetheless, you get that better run. Now, what's our next area? What's our next level? Well, we did have 565, I guess. We had one of those orange red lines. I actually did not plot. I didn't plot the 565 one. I plotted the 590. Darker red, and it's closer, more tightly knit to that $6 level, that assumed resistance at 6. So more or less, the same rules apply here. Actually, even more, because we're not expecting every stock to just keep going up and up and up and up and up and up and up. Again, folks, if trading was that easy, you and I would not be in an online trading room. We'd be out there on our own private islands. We would not be on a YouTube live stream right now, right? Come on, you and myself both. So that's where I'll tell you, at least, the same thing that I'm looking for here, I'd be looking for here. So more or less, seeing resistance getting repetitively poked at over and over, or otherwise. In this case, it seemed like it did pop it pretty nice. 1 second, I got to zoom in. Notice that this ended up breaking this area of resistance, and it wasn't just a small little nip. It looks like it popped over it decently, about 35, 40 cents here. So it did slam under it, but no wonder why it took off a lot more afterwards. Well, it broke under, broke back over it. Hesitation, but it was breaking back over it, breaking back over it. So essentially, the same process just repeated. The more times that area kept getting poked at. Now, again, though, if trading was that easy, right? Now we're closer at or even at reversal time. So I didn't take this trade. I'm teaching class actually from 10:35 to 11:35. So point being is that, even if you were not in class with me, you're expecting reversal time. You're not as gun-ho to jump in here as you should have from earlier, as you should have from before, right? So that's where I saw a bunch of us make money on this trade from earlier. Lynn, I saw Kathleen, I saw Barbara, Chris, Marcella, Patrick, Philip, a bunch of us. But hey, you know what? That's where I'll say otherwise, though. And it happened a little bit later on here because we kind of stopped plotting levels, right? So we'll focus still around the dollar prices, $7, $8, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Well, it hit resistance at first here. I wouldn't be jumping in if I was watching this for an entry. I would be waiting. And certainly the more it goes up, the more I'm waiting. So there's a chance I miss this pop even. But the point of it is the first time it tests resistance, you're expecting a head fake. And then from there, maybe the more it keeps pressing it, then you can get that better move. So even here, a drag down, I'd be thinking, oh shit, all right, well, obviously it should be game over even from earlier. It's already up so much percentage wise here at this point. So am I expecting the next wave? I'm not expecting it. But if I'm observing the stock and it's coming back up here and I'm saying, oh shit, I wasn't expecting that to happen, then I need to flip my mind around again rather fast. Because if this stock it has a chance of moving up to the next main resistance, then it needs to at least play nice. That's easy to say in hindsight. But hey, guess what played nice? This $7 resistance sure held pretty good, pretty nicely as support before it took off, right? This was resistance. Pretty nice how, well, it tried to even be support here at first, actually. It was actually playing pretty darn nice at first, even from here. Then it broke lower. But hey, if you take your eyes off this stock and you come back to it and it's already up flying up higher, then you just wipe your hands clean. Then you just say, okay, you know what? I don't want to chase. I don't want to jump in just to jump in. But let me tell you, though, there's a big difference between that and watching this stock from earlier and saying, okay, well, every dollar, there should be some formative iceberg level there, 5, 6, 7. And if you're watching this, at least test 7 and you see big spike of volume here and it breaks over 7, then at least it's for you to ask, wow, all right, well, for this to be moving up and breaking above that level, just like we talked about from phase 1 last week, our stock trading course, just like we had mentioned at least even earlier in our more intermediate class, when a stock is going up, what type of pressure are we seeing, folks? Who's winning that battle? Richard, Margaret, Pat, Gillis, Carrie, all of us saying buyers. Yeah. So hey, you know what? When it comes back up here, and if you're watching it, if you're observing this in time, if you're turning back over to this, unfortunately, it's not over 7 and flying way higher yet. Well, it leads you to ask, like, wow, really? It's going back up to 7? Well, we did have that buying interest from earlier. We did have that buying pressure from earlier. What happens if we see more? It's not like you're expecting it from earlier, but you're asking, well, hey, what if we do see more? What if there is a stronger, possibility of this getting back above 7 in the coming minutes? I'm not there for every single time a stock re-breaks a level I was previously watching. Again, I'm a human much like you are. I got the same or well, we got a different set of eyeballs. Perhaps mine aren't getting any better either, but just to say, we're all human beings, right? We got a brain between these 2 ears, and just to tell you, I'm not the sharpest tool in the shed. It's just to say though that if I do see a stock teasing a level and it's still fighting, I'm going to ask, okay, well, what if we keep seeing more buying pressure? Now, this at the next main area, not just a whole number, dollar number here, but a decade level number like 10, and it's up that much more percentage wise. Of course, there's hesitation to just see this keep popping at this point here. I mean, it broke over 10 and then slammed right back under it. So clearly it stopped playing nice. I'm expecting the run to be done. My mind right now tells me, hey, I think this thing's done for right now. I was expecting it earlier to be game over. It kept fighting, obviously, but I can't keep expecting it to keep fighting. I'm very pessimistic about this continuing right now. Now, maybe in about 30 minutes, maybe in about an hour, maybe in about an hour and 30 minutes, if I turn back over to this stock and this damn thing is back up towards 975. This damn thing is back up towards like 10 bucks here, poking this level. Again, I am going to strip away my pessimistic mindset and I'm going to replace that with, oh shit, well, we did break over 10 earlier here. What happens if we keep seeing buying pressure at 10 bucks? I'll be just as quick to do that as I am to throw this in the trash right now. So remember, we are day traders here. And for anyone new joining us, of course, you're not going to feel as comfortable trading a stock up so much percentage wise. I wasn't. Kerry wasn't. Malcolm wasn't. Frederick wasn't. Anyone joining our room or has been with us for an extended period of time, at least, I'm sure that you did not feel that way on day one. Feel that way on month one, right? But that's just where the more that you're with us, you realize like we see these stocks make these types of moves pretty frequently throughout the month. And certainly I'd go as far as saying once a week. And the cool thing with it being a Monday of all days today to begin this week is that with a stock up this much percentage wise, typically you are going to get like one or two more other small cap stocks that fly up 100+%. That's where I start kind of loosely saying, once one crazy starts getting out there, you start getting all the other crazies popping up left and right. The only issue is that most of those will just be really low float, pump and dump, like bad. Won't provide nearly as much opportunity as this. But the more that you see these stocks up 100 plus, 200+%, 500+%, you grow confidence and you feel more reactant, going like, okay, well, as long as I set my stop, as long as I put my seatbelt on before I drive my car, like I'm gonna at least reduce the pain. I'm gonna take away a lot of the risk involved. I'll tell you right now, if this breaks back over 10 suddenly right now and pops back up as we're talking, I'd still be pessimistic. I'm thinking, at least in terms of time, it's going to take probably about 30 minutes, at least, maybe an hour or so. From Armin, when would you go short on MLGO at this moment? Or would you, perhaps he's asking, would you go short on MLGO at this moment? Well, to answer that question, Armin, right? To answer that question at this moment, as you phrased it to me, I'm going to hypothetically ask, well, would I have shorted it earlier? Because you could very well easily ask me that question at 10:30 in the morning when you're expecting a reversal. You could certainly ask me that at 10:30 in the morning, not just when you're expecting a reversal, but you have this area 590 and $6 as resistance, right? 1 plus 1 typically equals 2. Let's just put it that way. So if I'm expecting reversal time around 10:30, I know it's not always on the nose. It could be a little bit before, it could be a little bit after. If I got this big level, that's the most important part with taking any trade. If anyone's trying to short stocks as they're going up, I'm telling you right now, they're not making a lot of money here. They're probably losing money pretty often. And if they are making money, I can guarantee you it's not on large size because they're trying to be a contrarian. And a lot of times when you're a contrarian, you get ran over by a Mack truck. So please, that's what I'll say to any person here. Go with the trend. And not just that, this is literally on just like a perfect skyline up trend here where it's like sticking really well. It's holding this trend line really well. But regardless of that, though, right, let's just factor in reversal time 10:30. Plus, most importantly, we got a big level. All right, we got a big level at least, right? So when it breaks over and when it breaks back under this area, right here, where my cursor is, that actually would constitute as a potential opportunity to try and short. Right where my cursor is, around this 590, around this 6, that would be the trigger to try and short. That doesn't mean I'm doing that. That doesn't mean I'm doing that shit. But no, I'm serious because I'm following the trend more often than not. So if you're asking me if this is my cup of coffee, Now, if you're asking in terms of strategy, I would at least be unbiased enough to tell you All right, if you're looking for a short, then you got reversal time here and you got a big level. So is there a thought to it? Yeah. Is it what I'm doing? No. But if you try and short this year, though, right at this area, you better be setting your stop. And this better be holding $6 at the least as resistance. You better be getting lower highs from 6, not from 613. Because the more this is chopping around 6, well, we're seeing more and more not selling pressure, my friends. But remember why this is going up to begin with. So let me ask Armin and let me ask everyone else as well. One more time for me, folks. You just answered it before. When a stock is going up, who is winning this battle? The buyers. So the more it is cutting over 6, you're seeing more buying pressure over 6. So, like, hey, if you're trying to be contrarian and like whatever, all right, I get it because reversal time is there and there is a big area, big level. But if it's not holding perfect under 6 and then dropping bad as it should, as you would want it to, as a bear here, as a short, then you better watch out. Better watch out. You better not cry. No, well, it's into a Christmas tune right there. But I'm telling you, because for anyone here that is trying to do that, it's easy to say at $10, well, that's your next psychological level. That's your next major area of resistance. And if you were patient enough, and if you didn't short it from earlier, and if you don't have any negative, feelings towards that from earlier, then perhaps you'll be more interested in shorting it. Look what happened once it broke under 10, right? It broke over 10. Look what happened once it broke under 10. This played a hell of a lot nicer under this level. Yeah, it nipped it once here, whatever. Like otherwise clean, 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 then drop, right? That's a hell of a lot nicer compared to what it was doing at first off of 6. And yeah, you could say like, well, yeah, it's because it's up a lot more now. Again, don't be Captain Hindsight out there. Look at the fine difference between where it was cutting over 6 here versus when it was holding under 10 there, right? Quick shout out here to my guy Warren on YouTube. Great to have you here, Warren. Still made money, he says, on that MLGO trade. One of our students joining us on YouTube today. Great to always have you there, Warren, and look forward to having you rejoin us here inside our live trading room soon enough. But again, that's what I'll tell you. If you were looking for a pullback and a short, then as long as you're using concise strategy, track that. As long as you're using intelligible strategy, that's what you're applying, then there's a chance, right? So me personally, I stick with going with the trend because I prefer to make money, right? Now, otherwise, though, like you could say for a stock dropping and pulling back when the market opens, well, what happens at 10:30 in the morning? Is there a chance for a reversal? Yeah, absolutely. And perhaps I am thinking more of a bull than a bear in general, not just contrarian or following the trend otherwise, but that's just where at least I'm just looking at Bitcoin here, IBIT. This was back from Thursday of last week on the 20th. Ended up topping off pretty much right on the nose at 10:30, right? And then otherwise, on a day where it ended up dropping off, I think it ended up bouncing pretty shortly around 10:30 in the morning. Right over here. Ended up building higher low, bounced. But more or less, yeah, I mean, that's what I'll look for based on time. But otherwise, I'm just typically sticking with the overall trend of the stock. All right, now, speaking of Armin, Armin had a question from earlier here. Let me actually get to that right now. Armin, one moment, just because my emails are all jumbled up here. I actually got to do it from my phone. Give me a quick second here. I'm actually on my phone checking out my emails here. One moment. Armin, did you send that question over, my friends? I didn't get it from you from email. Let me just double check my junk, my spam folder at least here. I'll try and fish through it, but I was asking if you could send me that question at least from earlier. I was going to answer it at least here live for you. Now, otherwise, I do want to talk about Tesla in between. So Armin, maybe you could just do me a favor here and just copy and paste that, at least from earlier. Just you could do it in the chat right now here. You don't need to email me, but otherwise, let me just talk a little bit about Tesla. Tesla had a pretty interesting historical level to work off of from earlier today. It's trying to break over it now. It's trying to build support over it roughly. Let's see, it was more off of, yeah, it's pretty much that. Pretty much that. Held underneath this area here. You could say 270. I was saying in our trading room 271, like in change, right here on the nose, back from July of last year, 271. Right here, basically around 270. So loosely speaking, you have a good historical level at that price. Well, let me retract that again. You have a good historical level within this loose area of 270 to 271. So throughout the morning, Tesla was pushing up pretty damn nice. And this is where, again, you don't want to try and be contrarian because it pushed up more, pushed up much higher. So this is 10:30 in the morning, loosely, like 10:15, 10:30. All right, well, it's at this area. This was a strong historical area back from last year. But if you're expecting resistance, it didn't break over it and then break back under it. It broke over it and it ran from it, right? So I've got Armin's question right here. I appreciate you, Armin. Thank you. I'll answer your question next. But let me ask us this one more time. You answered it before, folks. Repetition. The stock breaks over resistance and it runs. Not just a little nip of the level here, but this thing's freaking running. Resistance should become what? Support. Absolutely. Absolutely. So, yeah, I mean, it ended up pulling back around 10:30 in the morning, but I don't really have as good of a level. I'm not trying to just take a trade to take a trade. So, there's still great movement up here, and there's a strong past resistance that this actually broke right over. So, it did hold it as support. Now, is it breaking higher as we're speaking? No. So, like, if you jumped in on this as support right here, I'd say it's a clean entry. It's a very good attempt. Is it possible that we can get a higher high on Tesla later today? Yeah, 100% there is. Just be mindful, though, of what happens if we keep seeing this area getting pressed and poked at and stabbed. It's going to break. This support will get broken through. So this was, of course, meant as a day trade call out from earlier today. Fausto has been, really steering the ship as the swing trade here from last week and from the week before. I mean, he's been on top of that as a swing trade for a little while now. But, just to mention this whole setup here, well, we're factoring this as a day trade setup for a bounce. Question is, with this day trade, can we have a higher high? Is there enough gas left in the tank for this to try and push back up here? That's all. All right, so let me answer Armin's question here. Appreciate you there, Armin. On NASDAQ Book Viewer, that's right. Let me get NASDAQ Book Viewer up here because Armin was asking about that. Give me a moment. Give me a moment here. Give me a moment. There we go. Log into the NASDAQ account. I forgot my password for a second. So I was like thinking there for a second. Shit. All right, here we go. We got NASDAQ Book Viewer open. Armin's question. On NASDAQ Book Viewer, total column. There's a column Armin's referring to known as total. Amounts are always ascending on both sides. Let me see. So they are activated right there. Total. Yeah, so basically what the total is doing is it's adding up the size of each order at every price as it goes down. So, let me just show you this here, Armin. It's a good question to ask. My long answer short for you is that I don't use the total column. I do not at all. So it's just to say 1 plus 192 here on the shares column. Well, 1 plus 192 equals 193. Now, plus 50 is 243. Plus another 150 is 393. Plus the 217 here 610. So this is adding up like at every price. It's just keeping stacking up and up and up. Very good question to ask. It's always good to know, right? I personally do not use that at all, though. Fausto does not use that himself at all. Actually, the three columns myself and Fausto are fixated on here. This is not. Give me a second here. Why is this being a pain in the butt right now? See this? Let me see here. There you go. I got it fixed now. Good. It wasn't letting me take the total column off there. All right. Yeah. So basically, we just show the price, we show the number of shares, and then we show the number of orders that make up the share total. So let's just use Tesla here. And one thing you could do something cool. I went over this in class. Armin, I know that you have access to the phase one class. So we covered that last week. The filters button right here, you could filter this based on like volume. So if you're looking for just prices with 1,000 shares or more, well, it actually allows you to filter out the tiny stuff, and you can see icebergs a hell of a lot better. So like 275 here on Tesla, there's about 55,000 shares out there through NASDAQ, almost 2,000 shares, or I'm sorry, almost 2,000 total orders make that up. Pardon me. Along down the stick here today. Armin says, but that doesn't seem to make any sense, though. Thanks. Oh, as far as reading it, as far as the purpose of seeing it, well, that's where I'll tell you, Armin. Looks like you and I are enjoying a similar cup of coffee in that regard. Everyone's different, so there might be someone that sees value in the total column there with reading it. They might, use it and have good use of it, but otherwise, oh, look what just happened. This thing just blew right over resistance. Holy smokes. I didn't even catch that live on BookViewer. Just we were looking at that iceberg, and just next thing you know, pop goes the weasel. This thing just took off. All right, well, there we go. Now I could tell that order got broken through, because look at the giant spike of volume that happened here when this just pushed over 275. So there we go. There's our higher high. We'll take it. Right? So as far as resistance becoming support, bingo, right there. And again, keep in mind, we were calling that out at least from earlier. Let me even show this here to you. Inside our live trading room, actually. This was from 9:53 in the morning. I wrote this to you. Should be our at first. At first. Now that's important, because it's at the minimum to say. That doesn't mean that's going to be resistance all damn day, my friends. And when I type this to you, well, you see it blast over 271 area, around 271, so 270, 271. Well, that resistance flipped. And then finally, we got our continuation. So it made a better move, a little while after. Not a surprise, because we're smack dab in the middle of the day now. We're late morning, early afternoon. This is not prime time hours here. So where I look for a big move shortly after, I do. And this actually made a pretty good start. Now, I can't just keep expecting the same pace that it was making from earlier today. It's already up 10% on the day today. They already had a hell of a pop from the end of last week even. So this is up like 20+% from last week, from the end. So that's where I'll tell you, hey, it had a small period where it exhausted, but the cookie crumbled well. And this ended up, doing really nicely here, where it ended up building support. Now the question is, can it build support off the next resistance that we just had? The more that this keeps stabbing and pressing 275, then we should be getting our better move, right? So yeah, it popped it right there. Can it keep pressing it here going into the afternoon, or was this just a head fake? Or is this just going to fall back into this area here, this range, and just kind of stay put? The more this keeps pressing the 275, you should get your better run. The more it keeps pressing 275 as resistance, then the hope would be to see that flip into support. All right. Real quick. So I wanted to make just mention of this, just because from 2 weeks ago, I got just notice from one of our education advisors here, and I'm being very vague when I say this because I'm not making any shit like direct in public, but just we're a group, we're a family, we're a community, and I just want all of us to realize I try and make all of us feel included, right? So I did get a message from one of our education advisors, like, hey, one of our longtime students, like, I worked with him for a long while. We have a great rapport, and it just felt like he felt like he was like kind of in the background a bit. He wasn't it felt as included as much, perhaps, and I think I understood why. Just when you look at the chat, you see the trading room chat, throughout the day. Listen, you don't need to be, chit chatting all throughout the day. You really don't, to be making good money. And this student that, I was talking to about this, he's one of our better traders. So you don't need to be chit chatting to kill it here in this market. Actually, if you are not chatting, it means that you're more likely focused on yourself, right? So that's actually a good thing. But that was a couple weeks ago, and then even last week, I was on a coaching call with just we'll just say another student, and a longtime student that does very well here at least. He makes money. He's one of our better traders. He's always with us in class, and he kind of like, and I know he's here right now. I'll just say it's not exactly the same thing, but in a similar regard, I kind of understood why that first student was feeling the way he did from what my student told me last week. So I just want to make it known that from my side of things, I've been working with Fausto for over 10 years. I've been moderating and leading this room here for exactly that time. I've been teaching for about 9 years, if not now going on 10. So I just want to make it known from me to you. I want everyone here to feel included. This is not just about one person. If I'll just vaguely say, if anyone here feels the need to have the spotlight on them all the time, and that they're like that much ego driven that like they just want to make it about them, then please leave. And I'm not saying that about those traders. Those are real concerns from traders that I really appreciate, and I want to put the spotlight on those students more. But in general, if anyone here has that big of an ego where they want to make the chat all about them, we're not for you. We're not for you. So I'm here to put the spotlight on Armin. I'm here to put the spotlight on Pat and Bell and Donald and Gerard and Gunvant and James and Larry and Lynn and Mekalinga and Richard and Ron and John and Wiz and Yehuda and you and Day and Kathleen and Barbara and anyone here, everyone. I'm not here to put the spotlight on just one person. I'm here to put the spotlight on everyone. Not just everyone, actually. I will say, though, students that aren't always as chit chatty, I make it my point to put the spotlight on you because I want you to feel included. Also, though, for anyone here that like is very transparent with, hey guys, I'm jumping into this stock right now. Hey, I want to put the spotlight on them because they clearly don't care if they are wrong in front of a group of people. So, like, I'll just say, I think it was John S., one of our new members here, John S. Man, I wrote him the other week. I said, I really appreciate your transparency, my friend. I'm going to put the spotlight on those people more because I want Leda and Laureen and Kathleen and Bill and Larry to focus on that type of transparency, right? So, just from me to you, I want you to know like where I'm coming from as, at least a moderator here. So again, it's for everyone. It's for Lynn and Randy. It's for Sam. It's for Carlos. I'm here to put the spotlight on you. I'm here to put the spotlight on Joseph and Johnny and Kevin and Leda and Larry and Grant and all of us here. All right. So just want to make that a PSA, if I may, a public service announcement. If you got any follow-ups on that, please private chat me. I am here throughout my day today. I have told the staff here, I'm like, I can't do coaching as much on class days. So at least in between traders talk and our afternoon class, I am here, folks. Feel free to private chat me at all if you have any questions on that. Carlos says that if they are good traders and want to talk, I am here. They can text me. I'm always looking for any input. Absolutely. It's not just about the, look at me, I'm making money. It's about the explanation behind taking the trade. So that's where I said that type of transparency from certain traders. Like, I'm going to definitely make it a point in my day to put the spotlight on that. You know what I mean? Because I want that to help and benefit you, Carlos, and anyone here. Sam says, Josh, I support you, Rich Fausto. This is the best educational service by far. You're total professionals. You cannot do it any better in my eyes. I appreciate that, Sam. Hey, if you think I got an ugly face, let me know as well, though. I appreciate all feedback, good, bad, in between. You know what I mean? because when I'm hearing concerns from longtime students and two in about a 3 week span, that raises some concerns from my side. So I just want to at least share with you my thoughts. That's all. All right. Chuck saying just before I didn't want to ignore him right there. He said that old mongrel dog stock. Yeah, Chuck, check that out. As we're wrapping up Traders Talk, did this thing totally tank? It didn't. Wow. So you're saying there's a chance. So you're saying there's a chance, huh? Well, not just yet. Not just yet. It needs to keep poking that $10 level. It needs to keep nipping and testing that resistance. And not only that, it needs to do that over and over going forward. If it just blows the roof off of $10 coming up here, then all right, I'll try and flip that resistance into a support. I'll do that. But otherwise, I'm still pessimistic overall about this actually continuing. It is surprising it is trying to go back up, though. I'm not writing it off fully. So clearly, in the last 15 or so minutes, it did drop, but it made a little bounce back. It seems like there's still a little fight left in it. Question is, though, can it make that better play off of 10 later in the day? Because I'm not here to take a trade in between levels. I'm not going to be trying to take a trade under a big psychological level, right? Stock's trading 220 million shares total right now on the day. I don't even know the float of this stock here, but I'd be guessing it's under 10 million. Oh, surprisingly enough, and I kid you not, I didn't have this number up before I said that, but 9.8. The price is right. There you go. There we go, right there. Right? 9.8 million shares, under 10 at least. So this thing's trading like 22 times its float. Insane. I wouldn't be thinking there's more left to it. But if it starts to prove itself to me here in the coming 30 minutes or hour, I'd say that there's at least a possibility, right? All right, folks. I think that we're going to wrap up at least for right now from Lynn and Randy saying MGOL surprise coming from consolidation. Oh, MLGO, do you mean? Because there was actually a stock MGOL a long while ago. Actually, I guess they got delisted. I think there's some Argentinian stock, if I'm not mistaken. There, I'm serious. That's funny. No, yeah, MLGO just from consolidation at least. Yeah, I mean, just the more it hits that 10. From John S saying large short interest, like 36% of the float. I didn't check the short float, the short percent on it there. Let me see. Yeah, it's pretty big. It's a lot. So short's got to be covering. Short's got to be covering. They probably have already throughout the day. But yeah, that's a volatile concoction right there. Low float plus high short interest. It's not always guaranteeing that you're going to get 281% move on the day. It's not always a guarantee you're going to, get all morning, all afternoon run up. Now, as much as I say that, hey, I'm not shorting this stock blindly just because it's up a lot. I'm not shorting the stock because I feel like it might have already finished its run, because that's where you're going to get run over by this trend. So at the minimum, hey, we are going to respect the trend. And I am thinking, hey, the more this can at least press up against 10, there is a chance for that next leg. But we'll see. We'll see, though, at least, folks. Hey, we're going to wrap up for right now. Almost 1 o'clock on the nose. So, folks, if you're joining us on YouTube, Facebook Live, LinkedIn, etc., Warren, I look forward to having you just join us back inside our room. I know that you're a student, though. So for anyone that is a non-student, if you are not Warren S., but if you are not a student and looking to just join us inside our live trading room, just test our room out for the week, you can go right down to the link on the banner below, scrolling down on the bottom there in blue. Sign up here at ctu.co/trial, as it says down below there. Otherwise, though, Fausto is doing an open house workshop class coming up this Thursday. So if you wanted to join that, you could actually scan that QR code on the corner right, on the top right there of the screen, free live workshop. That'll be Thursday, noon Eastern time. We always do that each and every week on YouTube. So if you have not attended that just yet, you'll hear Fausto's thoughts going forward on Tesla as far as the overall markets. There were some good swing opportunities from the end of last week into this week. We'll talk about that there. But otherwise, though, as far as joining our live trading room, just go right down to the link on the banner below. Join Kathleen, join Brad, join Lynn and Randy, join John S., Grant, all of our students there. And otherwise, let's see what we got here before we finish up. Carlos says, yeah, the monthly paying dividends on TSLY, MSTY. Yeah, so those are good holds because you can collect some high dividends on those as, if you're bullish on Tesla, bullish on like the Bitcoin stuff. Yeah, and, it's still though, you want to make sure that you take good entries as far as getting in with the graph. But otherwise, so that's something to think about there, Carlos. I agree. All right, folks. Hey, we're going to wrap up though for right now. Hey, next audio broadcast will be exclusively inside our live trading room, 2:30 p.m. Eastern. All right, and we'll go from there. All right, talk to everybody soon.